Just push the button.
But I don't want to die. Can't we just forget about this?
I'm sorry, we can't. Go ahead. No, not that one. The other one.
Where the hell are we?
Hell is a place, not an expression. Watch your language.
Welcome everyone to the Thought Spot podcast. I'm your host Ashley Fouch, and so right now go ahead and just turn off the, I was going to say the television, that's so old-fashioned. Turn off the phone or whatever you're watching this on and just listen. If you want to see me move my hands around, then I guess you can still watch. But today I just wanted to bring you guys a kind of a serious topic, and then I was gonna lighten it up with a really fun dream that I had a couple nights ago. So here we go, everyone. One of the things that's been kind of heavy on my heart lately is the idea of being prepared for both the best and the worst. And one of the things that I've been thinking about lately is me and a few of my friends, we really feel like the Lord has given us talents and abilities and dreams for these rather large things that we feel at this moment, with everything, all the crazy stuff going on, might not happen. And it's very difficult to feel that way, where you all of a sudden you kind of feel cloistered in this box where you're like, I don't think I'm going to have enough time or money or whatever to do the things that I was maybe made to do. But I realize, even if I don't get to accomplish all those things right now on this time on earth, with this earth, I will be going on, and I will have unlimited amount of time to do the things that were meant for me to do. And right now what I'm supposed to do is use what time I have and what talents I have to give people truth that will set their souls free. And that's always what I've been meant to do. I think sometimes we get distracted with maybe like our deep desires. Like, I've always wanted to make films, and I'm making short films now. I'm using that medium to try to show people truth and beauty. But I might not get, and most likely I will never get my, movies on a large screen. That's a dream that I have. But if that doesn't happen, I'm okay with that, because I'm still getting to use film to show people truth. I may never get to have all the stories published that I want to, but I'm still going to be writing, and I'm still going to be sharing them with you guys, because I feel like that's what I'm supposed to do. Anything that I can do to share truth with people. And in today's world, truth has become very convoluted, and everyone wants to say, well, that's your version of truth, and this is my version of truth. But 4 + 4 = 8, 2 + 2 = 4, 1 + 1 = 2. There's some things that are just set in stone. They don't change. And God's word, the Hebrew God's word, doesn't change. It just doesn't. And his laws, when they're brought into a society, they make everything run more smoothly, and when they're taken away, things start to fall apart, because it's simply the order of life. That's simply what it is. And I don't believe in like a bunch of religious systems or anything like that to try to keep things in place, and I don't believe in really a hyper political system either. I just believe in people doing what they're supposed to do in their own time, in their own way, with their creator, because that keeps people on the straight and narrow. All that to say, I think that right now it's very important for people to be prepared for things to go either well or to go badly. And you always should live this way. We shouldn't be holding on to this world so tightly. It shouldn't be like right now we're planning to move again. And I'm not going to say that I was like all happy about it. I was not happy about it, and I was just like, Lord, I don't want to do this again. I don't want to start over again. I feel like, I finally have a town. I have people that I know around here. I know hundreds of people, guys, here in this town, because of the work that I've done, and working with kids and being a dance instructor, working at different community centers. I know a lot of people, and to me, having a town is like, it's more important than having like one special person. It's like I want to know everyone. I have the need and the desire for community. I'm very, very community oriented. And not to say that, like, you know, having one person isn't wonderful, but for me, having a broad spectrum of things is very, very important. And to feel that being stripped away from me again, I was like, okay, Lord, you know I'm not supposed to rely on anything. I'm supposed to rely on you. And you're moving me again, and I'm not happy about it, but I really want to do what you're asking me to do. And so some of the things that, you know, like some of the skills that people had, like in World War I, World War II, Depression times, was grit and the ability to draw up from yourself strength. And people also, they were much more, you know, everybody, even if they didn't have like a real personal relationship with God, people were just more open to the idea of God. And nowadays we see people who, they're very spoiled. They don't have really any of that grit, and they have rejected God, right? So when things go wrong, they throw the biggest tantrums. And they, people are like, oh, you're so infantile. And it's like, well, yes, but they've never experienced anything, and they haven't been given the training ground to really have anything to give them that grit, right? You know, like back in the day, we used to see, you know, we had to go out and like hunt animals. We saw a lot of death. We saw a lot of illness. We knew a lot of kind of old stories. We had ancient stories. We've taken away a lot of that now. We've made people very shallow. We used to have all this ancestral knowledge, right? We said, the ancestors are stupid, get rid of that. And so then we only have like the modern knowledge, and that's very, very shallow, really. If you take away all of humanity's knowledge, you know, like the 6,000 years that we have of the history of the past, if you get rid of all that and you're just like, well, let's just see like what a couple people knew, maybe like 50, 60, maybe 100 years ago. That's a very, very shallow pool of knowledge. So people are trying to operate in a, you know, having like very, very small bank of info about the world, life, and purpose and everything. And it's just not, it's not going to give them the strength that they need to push through and to push forward. And I'm very blessed because I grew up with a lot of old stories, right? I have a lot of ancient knowledge, and that's things that I would like to share with you guys because I feel like it's important. And I remember one of my teachers, she read to us this story of, I believe this was in communist China, where there was this group of women. They were believers, they were Christians, and they were getting transported because they wouldn't deny Jesus. They were getting transported from one town to this concentration camp, and they were all raped, they were beaten, and I think the perspective of that it was written from, I believe, was one of the soldiers. I really can't remember very well. I wish I remembered the name of the story, but I don't. But the whole idea of it was, this person was overwhelmed at the fact that these women were completely forgiving of the soldiers that were so mistreating them. And this is a theme that has happened over and over and over and over again in history for believers and for anybody who's trying to do the right thing. And we're heading to this point, right, where it's going to become very obvious who the people that you can trust are and who the people you can't trust are. It's going to become very obvious who's greedy and who is going to be sacrificial. It's going to be very obvious who is good and evil. And this always happens in history. It's just something where, as things swell and they come to a head, we're seeing the whole world right now kind of uniting, and there's this big wave that's coming up. You're going to have to pick a side. I think a lot of people, they always kind of bank on being able to kind of play both sides, or always sit on the fence, and there's lines being drawn in the sand. It's time to make a choice. And when it comes to maybe being fearful, like and maybe this is morbid, but this is how I always was as a child. I read a lot of very gritty stories, and I was always, prepared inside to suffer a lot, even in death or whatever, for what I believed in, and just in life, I was just prepared to suffer. So, and I've, you guys know that I've dealt with a lot of chronic back pain. This past year, in March, I had pain so severe in the hospital that it literally felt like I was being sawn in half, and I passed out from it. So, like, there's these levels of pain that you can learn to endure, and it's interesting. Your body can handle so much, but when you only have the anticipation of it, you've never actually experienced pain emotionally or spiritually or physically, and you're just always kind of standing back and hovering away from it instead of diving forward into it. You don't get that grit, you don't get that strength. So what I would say to you, if you are, fearful of going through a hard time, because we may go through a wonderful time. We may be heading towards something that's really wonderful, but there might be a really, really tough time coming before we get to that wonderful thing. And people joke about it being the end of the world and everything, and I'm not going to say definitively that it is or isn't, because I just don't believe in doing that, but we all know that tough times have happened. We all know that Rome fell. We all know that Vesuvius blew up. We all know that the British Empire, fell in America. Things come to an end, and there are new beginnings. And it's right now what I'm a little bit afraid for is the people that have never experienced anything difficult, because they're going to be easily swayed by the side that says, oh, this is the easy way out. Don't take the easy way out. Do not take the easy way out. Prepare yourself mentally. One of the things that I've been really thinking about is, and I know this sounds very extreme, and I'm not saying that things are definitely going to get this bad, but I'm preparing for things to be either good. I'm working on business stuff. I'm working on, growing, just myself as a person in business and growing my art and all those different things. But I'm also prepared for things to be very bad. And I want to be prepared for both. And living in that in-between world is really difficult, but I think it's really the only way to go. And especially when we're in this place in history where things are at this tipping point where we don't know where they're going to go, right? It's like some days it feels like it's going to be better, and other days it feels like it's going to be worse. But one of the things that I have always thought about is think like a soldier. What would you do if let's just say you were captured, right? We've all, we've grown up. My generation, we've all grown up on those dystopian novels, right? We've all grown up with this running in the back of our head, the end of the world, the end of the world, the end of the world. Well, what would you do? Let's not say that's the end of the world, but what would you do if you were captured? And what would you do as a person to keep yourself rooted and grounded? And one of the things that I've been really feeling impressed upon right now is, I don't know if you've ever watched The Book of Eli. It's a great movie, but one of the things that was just kind of amazing to me was that he had the entire Bible memorized. And one of the things, if you have ever done memorization before, which I don't think my generation has done a lot of memorization, which I think is a shame, because memorizing things, there's like a good way and a bad way to do it, right? The good way is when you believe whatever you're memorizing, or it's important to you. I remember I still love the Chronicles of Narnia, and as a kid I memorized, there was this letter that High King Peter wrote to Lord Miraz, and it was, I used to have it memorized. I sort of still have the first part memorized, but I just loved the style of writing that Peter had, and so I was like, I want to write like a king. I'm going to memorize this. So I spent like a whole summer memorizing that letter. And it made me just feel so Narnian inside, and it still affected me to this day. Like I have, sometimes it runs in my head, even though I don't have it quite memorized. That feeling of it runs in my head, and having, like, the other part is being brainwashed with something that you don't agree with or don't believe. When someone tells you memorize this, or you'll be punished, or it's just something that you just don't believe in with your soul. It's not anchoring to you. It's like it's suffocating. So you want to be anchored to something, not suffocated by something. And but the Bible is God's life-giving word, and if you've never read it for yourself, I really encourage you to pick it up because it's different than other books because it's got a certain energy to it. It's got, it was spoken long ago, and it was written by many different people over the years, who all had this same, like, who all had very similar experiences with God. So it was like kind of this repeating pattern that came throughout history, right? And everyone, like, you know, all the different things that God would say would always line up with each other. So you'd get one blip at the beginning of history, and then there'd be a period where nobody heard anything from God, and then another blip, and it would line up with what God said before, and then there would be another blip, and maybe a prophecy about the next blip that would come, right? So, and also the words they're life-giving. I can't really explain it any other way. You have to read it for yourself. When you read it, it's like, it gives you understanding without somebody having to teach you anything. You just kind of, if your spirit is lined up with God's, it just teaches you. Nobody, you know, there's a verse that says nobody has to be your teacher. That doesn't mean you can't glean from what somebody else says, but if you're reading the Bible with an honest heart and you really want to know what God's saying, he'll teach you. So, but having I would like to try to memorize the Bible. Like, I know that sounds like a huge thing, but like, I was thinking, if let's say I was, you know, in a prison camp or something like that, if I was able to, and I've been practicing fasting just as something that kind of clears your mind. It clears your mind, it clears your body, and you feel very in tune with everything that's going on around you. To me, I would say, if I was ever in that situation, you know, whether I got kidnapped or whatever, you know what I mean, just fast. Don't take any food or water that anybody gives you, and I want to just be able to recite basically the entire Bible. And now, am I probably going to memorize the whole Bible? Probably not, but you know, I'm going to try. So rooting myself to that would give me a lot of strength. And so that's something that I would really encourage everybody to do. You know, think about two scenarios. What would you do with your life if you had everything that you needed, and you really could make all the difference in the world, and you had the tools that you needed? What would you do? And what would you do to further pursue getting those tools? So for me right now, I'm pursuing business, I'm pursuing art, I'm pursuing different connections with art, all those different things. And then the other side needs to prepare for what if something bad happened. And we've all seen the Marvel movies, we've all seen, you know, our dystopian films, right? What would you actually do? Are you physically strong? Are you emotionally strong? Are you mentally strong? Are you are you spiritually strong? Are you ready for what will happen? So make yourself in your mind both a multimillionaire and a soldier. And don't let anyone or anything in that sphere to mess with you. You know what I mean? I really believe that every human being should be powerful and should be dangerous. And some people are going to choose to be powerful and dangerous for the evil side, and some people are going to choose to be powerful and dangerous for the good side. So you need to take your stand. You need to know what you believe in. You need to understand the power of your choices, and then you need to move forward from that. So be strong, be courageous. You know, if you have decided to walk the path of God, you know, he says, do not be afraid. I think it's like 365 times, maybe more than that in the Bible. Do not be afraid. And it's very hard because it's very easy to be fearful as human beings. It just is. But he's told us not to be afraid. So don't be afraid. Refuse to be afraid. And I'm saying this to myself, guys, too, because like sometimes I get, you know, I get afraid. We all get afraid, but we don't have to be. And make, you know, in your head, really make yourself that strong person. Just tell yourself, I am that strong person. And if this happens to me, I'm not going to get bitter. I'm not going to get angry. You know, you have to prepare for these things beforehand. And what I loved about that story with the Chinese women, just to jump back to that, was that they forgave the people who raped them. They forgave the people that were pillaging their homes. They forgave them and they loved them. And if you can have God's Spirit in you, forgiving and loving and already rooted in that, if something bad happens to you, you're prepared for it. If something good happens to you, you're prepared for it. You're ready to rejoice, you know? And remember that this world is not our home. This is not all there is. And we right now are in the training ground for where you're going to go. You know, God doesn't, like basically, if you will have immortality. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It just gets transferred to something else, right? So you are energy, and that's going to go somewhere. And if you want to be a powerful, creative individual, but you're evil and selfish, you're not allowed to go to to the place where you can create. You're not allowed to do that. So you will be kept in a prison, right? And that prison is hell, Hades, whatever you want to call it. But if you are, if you're good and you're willing to be self-sacrificial, you will go to heaven. You will be, in the place where creativity happens. Because that's a very, very powerful position. It's not something to be taken lightly. And with that, I'm going to transfer us to a dream that I had a couple days back that was just really fun, and I wanted to share this with you guys. So I had this dream where and I've had this happen maybe a couple times before, where basically, like, let's imagine that these are all houses, and you know how there's house numbers? Imagine that they were all different time periods. So you would have like 1500, 1600, 1700, as the street goes on. And I was walking through this street, and I saw people that I knew, or not knew, but like knew of. So I saw Amy Carmichael. She was a missionary who helped free sex slaves in India as children. And then there was Corrie ten Boom, who she was a lady who hid slaves, or not slaves, sorry, Jews from the Nazis in World War II. There were all these different people, and there were some just everyday people, but I knew them. And it was sort of like I was in this movie about heaven. So I knew that it wasn't exactly heaven, but I was having a great experience while I was in this movie. So anyway, as I was walking along, I noticed all these different people, and then I turned around, and I was all of a sudden in the heaven place, and I had this art easel in front of me, and there were all these different people with art easels in front of them, and there were like all these women around my art easel, and they were like, "Oh, we've been getting your stuff ready for you, like we have all your favorite colors over here, and just so you know, if you need anything, we have all of this." And they pointed to this like Costco-like, it was Costco basically. It was Costco and Fred Meyer, which is my favorite store in the whole world. I love Fred Meyer. I find peace there. So anyway, they said, you don't have to have money. Everything is yours. Like, this all belongs to all of us. It all belongs to God, so it's yours. And I was like, really? Because as someone who likes arts and crafts, imagine if someone said that Michael's or something was all yours, right? It's just like, oh. So I couldn't believe it. I was just so excited. And then I was like, oh, well, I need some masking tape. And so they said, okay, just go over and go get whatever you need. So I was going past all these aisles of just stuff everywhere, and I was like, this is so cool. And then I realized, oh, I'm not familiar with this like Fred Meyer, and I was really embarrassed because I know where everything is at Fred Meyer. And so there were these carpenter guys that were walking along, and they had like big planks on their shoulders and everything. And I said, oh, can you tell me where the tape is? And they said, oh, sure, but you should actually go back to the warehouse because we're making an important announcement. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll get the tape later. So I go back over to the warehouse area, and the carpenter guys come in, and they said, okay, guys, like they were getting all of us ready for something, and they said, okay, now for the newbies here, which was all of us people who had like just popped into heaven, they said, I know you're not hungry, but God really, really likes to cook for us. So when God comes in here, he always has like a big barbecue going. He's gonna say, okay guys, come on, where's the I'm starving? And we all have to pretend like we're really hungry because that's part of the game. So you have to go, oh, I'm starving. And I thought it was so, like, everyone was laughing about it. It was so funny, and all of us new people were like, okay. And also it was weird to me because there wasn't really time. It was just like, we just randomly would call like a certain time lunchtime, because it seemed like to me that like from the time that I got there, I didn't know if it was like 100 years, 1,000 years, 1,000,000 years, or whatever. There just wasn't any time. But randomly, whenever God brought in lunch, that was lunchtime. So then this guy comes in representing God, and he was like this bald dad figure, and he had this big cooking apron on, and he had made burgers that were, I swear, as big as your head. It was ridiculous, and he had it all in this like you know those pop-up tables that you use like for fairs and whatever, those plastic pop-up tables. It was one of those. And so he walks in, he's like, hey, and everyone was just, you know, waving from their little easel stands, like, okay, come on guys, where's the I'm starving? So everyone was like, oh, I'm starving. And so everyone came over to the tables to get their food. And I was really worried because I have a lot of food allergies, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I should eat this. And he's like, oh, come on, you can eat it. And I was like, okay. So then as we were getting our food, I looked over and I saw this lady who I knew it was Corey Ten Boom, but she didn't look anything like her. She looked like the lady from Jurassic World. I can't remember her name now. Oh, my friend just told me today. I can't remember. Anyway, she's a lovely redhead. And I was like, oh, she's so beautiful. Who is that? Is that Corey Ten Boom? And people around me were like, yeah, that's her. And I said, but she doesn't look anything like how she did on Earth. And they said, oh, she's beautiful because she loved Jesus and she told a lot of people about Jesus. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. And then I woke up and I was sad because I didn't get to eat my burger. But it was just a really lovely dream, and I've had a lot of like really intense dreams lately that were not fun and like made me feel yucky all day. So that was a really, really great dream. And I just thought it was such a pleasant picture of heaven. It was so funny because I told my mom afterward, and she was like, if I came to heaven and someone gave me an art easel, I would want to run away, because my mom hates like arts and crafts and stuff. But for me, I was like, oh, you know, so maybe I went to like the section of heaven where like the artists go. I don't know. But it was very fun. And the whole idea of having like, I've never thought about having all the supplies I would need for something, because, you know, when you're on Earth, you're always limited by like, oh, I don't have the money for these supplies. But imagine if you just had anything and everything you needed. Like, there was no limitations. That was really cool to me. And I have a pretty big imagination, so I like to think about heaven a lot. And also, people always think of heaven as like, yes, right now we're separated. We have like heaven and earth. But then eventually it's going to be kind of, as well as I can understand, it's like we'll get a brand new earth. And then I think heaven will be like, it'll be kind of like upstairs, downstairs type of a thing, but I think we'll be living on Earth. I call it like Earth 2.0. I think that's how it will work. I don't know exactly because it's kind of vague in the scriptures, but that's like what I've deduced, and that's what my imagination comes up with. I don't know if that's true though. So if we all get there and then you're like, that's not how it was, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry guys. But there's going to be a lot of things to do is what I'm saying. It's going to be more like Earth, but better version of Earth, because there won't be any limitations. We'll have anything and everything we need. And so I just thought that was a really cool, uplifting dream, and I'm going to leave you guys with that. So, but prepare, mentally prepare yourself. Make yourself strong, you know. Be a soldier inside. Think like a soldier. Think that way, you know. Make yourself mentally strong, and have joy in your heart. Don't be afraid, and remember that this world is not our home. And I will see you guys next week. Thank you all for watching, and have a wonderful rest of your week. And I will post an art video. We're doing an art highlight video this Friday, so I will see you guys then. And I'm sorry that I haven't gotten the Making Peace with Your Past up this week. I may try to, but I had a interesting day on the day that I was supposed to post that. So yeah, but I will get caught up with all that stuff, and I will see you guys for the next Thought Spot podcast next week. Have a good one, guys.